Dr. Jason, welcome to the Dad Edge, my friend.
Thanks so much for having me. I am a bit envious of not only your studio, but that sweet painting on the back. That's pretty cool.
Thank you. It's funny. So a lot of people make comments about, my office and studio and that kind of thing. And I can't take any credit for it. I wish I could, but I can't. My wife, she does interior design as a hobby, like totally as a hobby, has never been trained in it, but does this bang up job of being able to take a totally blank wall and canvas room and then turn it into something amazing. And I actually left town. This was probably 4 years ago, for a week.
Yeah.
And my walls were bare. I had like warehouse, horrible, like office furniture. Like it was a joke. And then I came home to my entire office was gutted. And my wife like literally swagged out this office to everything it is now. Brand new furniture, shelves. Like she even put like on this wall over here, like two different shelves with all kinds of memorabilia, podcast guests over here that we've had. And like she just did a great job. She's really
Tell her she has a gift then. That's amazing.
She does. I always tell her, I'm like, you should go full throttle with this, create a business. Cause she has so many people that like just see our house and they're just like, hey, can you come decorate my house? And yeah, she just knows colors and staging.
I'll hire her to come in and do my podcast space.
Right. There you go. You would leave that podcast studio you got there and come back the next day and it would be something totally you love. But
I'm sure anyway. That's awesome.
But man, let's get to you. So welcome to the show. And it's interesting to have you on, but I want to like just level set, just so the men have some context of, so what does your family look like?
So the actual family dynamic looks like myself, my wife. My wife is about 4 months older than me. She's 45. She's slightly older right now. I'm 44. We have one daughter. She'll be 9 in October. We are both doctors. We're both chiropractic and we do functional nutrition. We have one of the biggest practices in the world for what we do. My daughter is homeschooled / I'm really more unschooled. We pretty much dictate our lives, dictate our schedules. We have several successful businesses that we work on, brands online, things like that. And so it's every day. And this is the important message at some point we'll get to. The cool thing about our life is we're both on the same page. We have the same purpose in life to help people from a healing standpoint, natural health standpoint, but also, and this is going to sound very over the top, but it's just how it is. We're trying to save the world. I mean, and I think that everyone is, but we wake up with our mindset on, we have to save this planet. We have to save a lot of stuff. So that's our life. That's what we live every day. That's what we look like from a family. That's what we look like from a business standpoint, and get up every day and try to help somebody.
That's awesome, man. You identify yourself as a husband, dad, physician, patriot, and humanitarian. You're the founder of the Revolution Network and Brave TV, and you're dedicated to getting the American people and world public out of health and financial slavery. So let's talk about each one of those. When you say health slavery, what does that mean to you? And what does that mean to how you go about saving, basically the world?
Yeah. And from a standpoint of who listens to this, some people will totally understand what I'm going to say. And there's no way for me not to say this based on what we do as a purpose in the healthcare space. But at the same time, some people will probably be a little back on their heels when they hear some of these words. But we live in a complete sick care system right now.
Yes, we do.
And I see this every day. So the average person who comes into our office, whether office or online, because we do both now, is average medication list is like 10 medications. Average.
It's crazy.
We've had 10 years old and under walk in on 5+ medications.
Oh my God.
We currently have, and I'll be careful of the words because you'll get banned if you're careful. So I'll because I've been banned on pretty much every channel from the beginning for the last 2 years, because I was one of the ones who stepped up and just started screaming from a rooftop. We have people coming in from the last year of taking injections, and their skin is literally peeling off. It's a bioweapon. That's what it is. It's a depopulation bioweapon. And so our job is to literally we have to just wake people up to this. First of all, that people are becoming sicker and sicker. There's no way around that. And we've all been told that what is healthy is actually going to make you sick. And I always refer back to, because it's really easy for people to look this up, I refer back to a study that was done years ago. I want to say it was the 1950s off the top of my head, but you can literally look it up on Yahoo or CBS. Like all the mainstream news places went with this. So we have been told forever that fat is going to kill you and sugar is okay. And this is the basic fundamentals of healing, which is back in the 1950s, I think it was 50s, Harvard study was done where they literally found out that fats and saturated fats, things like butter, meats, etc., would literally heal the body. And that sugar, refined processed sugar, was literally leading to inflammation and then long-term disease. But what happened was the corporations, and I am, by the way, not I am Mr. Capitalism, but I'm also ethical capitalism, conscious capitalism, whatever you want to call it. So food companies literally went into Harvard, paid off scientists. At the time, I think it was about $40,000 or $50,000 a person in that type of money, which is much more today with inflation. They were paid to reverse the findings of their study. They literally took money to reverse the findings. And so instead of publishing that fat is healing and sugar causes disease, which is what they found, they reversed it to say sugar is safe to eat and fats will cause disease. And that is literally right in the article. Again, CBS, Yahoo. So like, I don't like mainstream media, but for anybody out there who's like, well, try to prove it, that's conspiracy. They all published the same thing. It came from Harvard. That's where they did it. And so every day from a health standpoint, it is waking people up to realize, and it's not just a physical health standpoint, because also it comes with a mental health viewpoint as well. If you believe you were put here to be sick, then we have to change the mindset as well, because we were never intended to be physically or spiritually sick. But that's the matrix we fell into. And so when I say it's a matrix, because every day when I finally see people flip from where they are when they come in sick to where they are when they're actually feeling good again, there's this little thing that always goes off in their head. They're like, I never knew, one, that I didn't need medications, but I also never knew that I could feel this good. And I didn't ever, and then they actually see the programming that was designed that they weren't seeing in the beginning of like, oh my gosh, the entire media and medical establishment is lying to me. And I always disclaimer, I'm not an anti-medicine individual. There's emergency medicine is one of the greatest things we've ever been given / discovered, innovated, etc. But there's a big difference between somebody, being in a car accident and having to go in and get an arm surgically replaced or whatever it is, versus going to your general practitioner with a symptom and then one medication and then another medication and then another, and then all of a sudden side effects. Oh, I have a side effect. Oh, well, that's a problem. So let's add another medication. There's no actual scientific studies in any of medicine for the side effects or the intermingling of the chemical makeup of different medications. So when you go after 2 to 3 medications that you're on, they don't have any research on what it's like being on 5 medications or 6 medications. Literally, it's a toxic formula that they don't know what's going to happen. And again, I go back to the average person is coming in on upwards of 10 medications. That is literally a crime against humanity. I hope that makes sense.
That is absolutely crazy. So what do you find are the main medications that a lot of your patients come walking in on? Is it mental health medication? Is it diet related? Is it both? Or what are the most common things you're seeing?
So some of the most common, women can't sleep, so they're on sleep medications. Women are, they both aren't sleeping, but also if they do sleep, they wake up exhausted, which means they're not sleeping in the middle of the night. There's a difference between eyes closed and actual rest. So medications, there's for sleeping. We have statin medications because of high cholesterol, which is one of the biggest scams in all of healthcare. Cholesterol isn't even that important to health. You have to have cholesterol because cholesterol is a precursor to all sex hormones. So we have talking about dads, the dad edge. We have a nation of men and women who have no sex hormones. There's no drive. The drive is completely crumbling. And yet everyone's being put on statin drugs and told your cholesterol is too high, and they lower your cholesterol. And cholesterol is exactly what will increase those sex hormones again. Like testosterone is in the tank for men. Like men are literally growing moobs, as they say, breasts, right? Why? Because their testosterone's in the tank.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
That one in particular. So genetically, I have high cholesterol. Like I get my cholesterol checked pretty often. My doctor for a long time was really pushing statins. And then 3 years ago, I went on a plant-based diet. And kind of crazy. I always thought like being on a plant-based diet, my testosterone would decrease and I basically would like turn into a woman because I loved anything to do with meat. Right. And like, as far as like chicken and fish and beef and eggs and all this, I decided to try it. My testosterone actually went up, which I thought was really crazy and sort of fascinating. Cholesterol went down. But my doctor for years has been telling me, he's like, hey man, like your cholesterol is 280, your bad cholesterol is 190. Like this is dangerous for your age. And he really, really wanted to push the statins. Well, now that because of my diet, my cholesterol has gone down quite a bit. He's no longer really worried about it. But to be honest, like I've always been confused around this whole thing with statins, cholesterol, heart attack, stroke, all these things. I mean, doesn't high cholesterol cause heart attacks and strokes, or is that just something we've been told?
No, so when they go in and they operate to find out, what causes the heart attack, I call it the wrong target. So when you're going for something, you're going for the target. You need the source of the problem. So when you go in and I understand where they're missing it, because you go in, you open up a blood vessel and there's plaque all over and there's cholesterol and there's fat in there attached to the artery wall. So they go, oh, well, that's the cause because that's what's there. That's not what the cause is. There's fat in everybody's bloodstream. It's cholesterol. Well, that's again, cholesterol hormones. Why did the fat get stuck there? Well, because you have inflammation. So it's like a hose. When you put a water hose out in the middle of a hot summer, it is going to contract, expand, contract, expand, contract, expand over. If you contract and expand enough times and you have a poor quality hose, even a good quality hose, over time, it's going to start cracking, right? So your hoses inside your system start cracking from inflammation. Where does the inflammation come from? There's only one thing that is the cause of all the majority of inflammation in the body, and that is processed refined carbohydrates. It's that simple. So carbohydrates, sugar, inflames the body. It cracks the inside, and then the cholesterol, what's already in the bloodstream, hits friction, right? Friction, it catches friction and it gets stuck and gets lodged in, and over time it starts building up. So when you go in, you're going to see a bunch of cholesterol or fat there, but the cholesterol fat should have never been stuck there. The sticking is from the crack in the hosing, right? So I recommend everyone go to cholesterolcode.com. And the reason I do it is because a lot of times when I'm educating on cholesterol, there's only so much time to like throw in the data, but a lot of people really need some science behind it. For example, my cholesterol is well over 200. I have no concerns with it at all. Not a problem. When people do plant-based, sure, it can improve, because what a plant does is plants are going to go in and they're going to start cleaning out the system. It's a detoxification effect. When you go to cholesterolcode.com, there's actually an engineer who literally breaks down the entire, even deeper than doctors go. It is phenomenal what he did. Break it down to why, honestly, at the end of the day, I do not care what someone's cholesterol is when they come in the office. I don't even look at it. It doesn't bother me. And I'm also part of the carnivore lifestyle. I'm not 100% carnivore all the time, but I don't worry too much about cholesterol. I look at it. How are you feeling? How are you doing? I look at the sex hormones, like how are the hormones? How is someone going through life? And as a man, right, the dad edge, guys, you should be loaded with testosterone. And it really goes back to this. No matter what the numbers show, men and women were intended from square one to procreate. To procreate, you must have a sex drive. If you don't have a sex drive, something is wrong. Now, it's not just physical. There's also mental and emotional aspects to that as well. And what I find a problem is not just the physical part, but men and women in America right now, we've become very uncomfortable with communication, even within the home. And things break down. And so now all of a sudden the diet's out because people are snacking and they're emotionally, they're not being attended to. So you have a spiritual and physical issue, but ultimately the drive is down. Men and women are not even facing each other. And then you have the collapse of the nuclear family because many aspects of that. But from a health standpoint, I go, okay, where's your health at? Well, we don't really eat too well. Okay, well, you got to get that in. And then man and woman, you got to start communicating. America has been taken over by the television, right? So we watch television and we don't talk anymore. And communication is absolutely paramount to that. So there's a lot of different pieces to it. Obviously, I just unpacked a whole lot of stuff, but that is some of the things that I work on. And even in my practice, someone comes in, well, my testosterone is down or sex drive is down or whatever it is, or my cholesterol is up. Okay, great. We're going to fix that. That's not a problem. The physical part of the body is not a problem. But what are you not confronting in life? What are you not facing in life? Because when I go in, when I see a family, when I look at my own family, I don't agree with my wife on everything, but I adore her. I love her. We're on the same team. And we communicate about stuff and we don't fight, but every once in a while we bicker. We had to teach our daughter, like, hey, mom and dad are both type A personalities. And you're not always going to hear mom and dad being like rainbows and butterflies. Sometimes they're going to be tough discussions. Sometimes we won't agree on something, but we're always going to go forward. And this is part of the whole health paradigm too, is mom and dad literally coming together and facing the realities of life, if that makes sense.
I want to go back, not to completely change the subject, but you had me very curious because when I said, hey, what medications do you normally see? Is it, statins? Is it mental health? And you said yes immediately to mental health. So, what is it that you see most common as it relates to drugs for antidepressant, for depression, for anxiety, for any type of mood disorders? What do you see there?
So I'll make the first bold statement. There's of course mental health issues in America and the world right now, but all of them are solvable, and the majority are solvable by just straight up mineral deficiencies. I mean, what they're trying to fix with drugs is the nutrient deficiency of America. I mean, you look at our diet. Our diet is, I have a lot of books on my bookcase back there of basically ancient nutritional diets / basically what people ate, right? And you go back and, go back to the caveman, right? Like they didn't have Nabisco on the shelf. They didn't have Kellogg's on the shelf. We have become a complete snack, junk food society. Go back and I don't care if you're carnivore or plant-based, it really doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, your cave people, or even back, even 1800s, 1700s, meat, vegetables, fats, that's what they ate. Like they had milk delivered to their front door. Today we have green Go-Gurt in a tube, and that's breakfast for kids. And you look at the label and it's completely horrific. And your kids, so the kids are bombarded today with sugar, Wi-Fi, drugs. Schools get paid. This is something people don't want to know about. Schools get paid. Public schools get paid. Administrators get bonused on mental health screenings for children. That's why this is happening. I mean, it's no different than a pediatrician getting bonus for the amount of vaccines they give out. Same thing. But this is the problem. The public doesn't know about this at all. They're getting bonused on this stuff. So, for example, number one, psych drugs. I mean, it's Adderall, it's Zoloft, it's Ritalin, it's Prozac, you name it. They're coming up with a new one every day. It gets so insane. We have people come in, they're like, why are you looking the drug up online? Because they come up with a new one every day, and we don't even know the names of half of them that are coming out. But the practitioner knows about it because the pharma rep came in, which I actually have friends who are former pharma reps. The pharma reps come in with the list of new drugs that are under patent. That's how your general practitioner knows. They don't know because they studied it. They know it because the pharma rep gave them the list that's coming out that's new and what it does. We have to go look it up because I don't have pharma reps coming into my office, nor would I ever allow them to. So we have kids today, even adults, the average, when I went to that 10, on average, people 10 medications, over half of those are typically something to do with mental health and or sleep. And the sleep thing falls into the mental health because they start making people feel like they're crazy. I'm not sleeping. I must be crazy. Something's wrong, etc. I was personally one of my stories was when I was about 26, 27 years old, before I was even a doctor, I was put on Adderall and Zoloft. And this is probably one of the reasons why I fight this so hard, because there is no actual biochemical diagnostic test to prove out anything psychologically, meaning you can't take a blood test and go, oh, well, this chemical is off in your brain, this neurotransmitter isn't working, therefore you need this drug. They simply test via subjective tests. So for example, I was having some heart arrhythmia, right? I went in, we found out it was just some minerals off, right? And they sent me at the time I was still in the medical mindset. They sent me to a psychiatrist because I told them I felt anxious every once in a while. I also had a high stress job. I wasn't eating great, etc. So I went in, I had 2 visits with a psychiatrist. It was literally a waste of time. They didn't ask me anything profound, and they sat me down in front of a test, and it was a multiple choice test. And I totally failed the test because questions like, if you're taking this test and someone walks into the room, do you look up? Well, of course you look up because there's somebody entering your room and you're just being aware of your surroundings. In their world, that's considered distraction. You're distracted. You're not working hard enough. You're not in your work, so you're distracted. So I ranked in I think it was 98th percentile of ADD, ADHD. And so that gets you Adderall and Zoloft. So I took it home, and I was single, bachelor at the time. And I took it, and I was up till about 4 a.m. with the first high I've ever had. When I say high, I've never done a drug in my life, not because I didn't have plenty of opportunity, just never went that route. So I've never even smoked pot. So I have no idea what a drug high is. I have to admit that to people, because some people are like, well, you don't understand what it is. I've never been there. I don't know. However, that didn't feel good because I was not in control of my environment. And I became very OCD until about 4 o'clock in the morning. I took myself off of it because I was like, that seemed strange. And even though I had anxiety before that, that didn't seem like a good solution to anxiety. And so I never went on it again. But interesting how, divinely in my life, I've come to this point where we have kids coming in who are on 2 or 3 psych drugs already under 10 years old. And they're telling us in a practice, they have voices talking to themselves. They're scared. They're sweating. All these things that they didn't even have before the psych drugs. And I'll end that rant with this: we don't have a gun problem in America because every single school shooting or mass shooting, every single person who did the shooting was on multiple psych drugs with the side effects of suicidal, homicidal behavior, aggressive behavior, manic acts, etc. Literally exactly what they're doing is the side effects of the drugs they're on. And it's not just one drug. They're on multiple drugs. So that's probably, when you say the list of what drugs are common today, the number one is psych drugs, hands down. That's why I answered when you went through the list. I just said, yeah, immediately, because that is the number one.
You're preaching to the choir as far as pharma goes. I used to sell pharmaceuticals like back in the day. It was my first
Okay.
job out of college like 20 years ago. And, you know, one of the first drugs I sold for a company was an anti-anxiety drug like 20 years ago. So they basically had to teach us, you know, all the drugs in that class, you know, our competitors, and then all the side effects that are associated with those drugs. But here's the fascinating thing. You know, the fascinating thing is this: a patient comes in, presents with symptoms to their general practitioner. The general practitioner then, you know, will make a will then write a prescription for a drug that they think will work. And he's like, hey, you know, try this for 6 to 8 weeks, come back and we'll figure it out. Right. We'll come back and we'll see what's going on. And then after those 6 to 8 weeks, patient comes back, reports back in on how things are working, how things, you know, side effects and all that. You know, okay, let's tweak the dose, or maybe let's even add something else to it. And you know, I will tell you, you know, I was diagnosed with adult ADHD 15 years ago. I was curious. I did this all by myself. I was like, I wonder if I have this, because if I look back on my track record with school and all this other stuff, like maybe I have it. And I got this diagnosis. Well, I was on medication for a while, and the medication came with a plethora of side effects that were just not pleasant. One of them, probably too much information, but it is what it is, was ED.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't like sustain an erection for you know, a period of time that I wanted to, right? Or the quality of the erection wasn't the best.
Yep.
And then so then then I go back and I tell my doc this, and he's like, "Oh, well, no problem. I'll put you on a low dose of Viagra." I'm like, "Dude, I'm 30 something years old, like at the time, right? I was in my early 30s. I was like, I don't want to be on this. Like, come on, man. Like I am this and this. So
You weren't
then
even the prime of your career as a 30-year-old like that. Like
I
that's
wasn't.
early onset, right?
Yeah. And then here's the other unpleasant thing that came with it. Because the drug that I was on was somewhat of a stimulant, I couldn't sleep. So then he puts me on sleep medication. So I go in, you know, for this one diagnosis of, oh yeah, you do have adult ADHD. Here's your script. Well, because of that script, I walked out with 2 more scripts of other things, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? And I can't even remember at this point, like what, you know, when I got off that drug. But I'll never forget going into my doc office, and he was like, hey, I noticed you, it was Strattera. That was the name of the drug.
Yep.
He's like, I noticed you haven't refilled your Strattera or the Viagra or the sleep medication. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm done with it. I'm done with it. Like, I want no part of this. Like, listen, I will, I've cleaned up my diet, which I eat insanely clean. Like I just do. I have
Nice.
for years. I eat high nutrition. You know, my thing is like high octane fuel. I eat so many vegetables. I make sure I get all my essential minerals in, all my vitamins, all these things that are so important, all my greens. Like when I actually make my food, I go for colors, right?
Nice.
I go for,
You're probably one of the only ones doing a plant-based correctly if you're going to do it, because the majority of people do it. They're eating so much carbs. And the fact that you just said, I eat so many vegetables,
yeah.
you have to eat a lot of vegetables to do it right. You're probably actually one of the only ones doing it correctly.
I have a really good coach. He's been a vegan bodybuilder for 10 plus years, and he just is absolutely amazing at what he does. And I've worked with him for 3 years now, but I actually get a ton of protein. People are shocked to hear like how much protein I get. And I do supplement a high quality plant-based, you know, protein shake that I incorporate in there. The protein sources that I use, like tofu, like I use like the higher protein vacuum packed, you know, higher quality tofu, like that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, going back to what I was saying you know, it's interesting when I removed the crap out of my diet, it was fascinating how clearly my mind would work and how much more focused I was. And I'm sitting here like, you know, I'm going to be 47 in 2 weeks.
You don't look it.
Thanks. I appreciate that. But I will tell you that my sex drive is the highest. It's higher now than when it was when I was in my 30s. My testosterone's great. It's borderline about 900, and it was in the 600s. I have no issues with sleep. I have no issues with focus. I have no issues with ED whatsoever. And it's been that way for years.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there thinking like, man, and here's the funny thing too. And I out of the privacy of my kids, I won't share names, but we've gone in and, talked to our kids, our boys have kind of gone through some things here and there, like, a lot of change in our family as far as like moving and school changes. And, we lost a baby in there that really impacted my two older boys. And it was fascinating to me how quickly their pediatrician went to put them on Zoloft.
Yep.
And I was like, hang on. No. And, but yeah, it's that go-to drug constantly. And it's very, very scary. And unless you've worked in the medical industry, like I did for 15 years, I was in pharma and medical device, and you get a peek behind the curtain of all this stuff. And you're like, huh.
Wizard
Yeah.
of Oz.
Yeah, it is. It's like, but yeah, so I want to talk more about, just some other things. And I know you said it's just other things that have your attention as it relates to parents. And what else are we not seeing as parents?
That is a loaded question, but
I know.
I'll be. And the reason I say that is because some of the stuff I talk about on a daily basis with my daily podcast, as I go deep into it. And for anybody who ends up going over there, I'm not a different person on other podcasts like this, but I also respect where that person's audience is, because not everyone, is where I am on the show. But when it comes to my show, I obviously unleash the whole, I just look at it as a matrix. I mean, the movie Matrix is out, and it's so funny because everyone saw the Matrix originally, and it was almost too ahead of its time, because people looked at it like, okay, cool, sci-fi, very interesting, really good story. And I'm like, no, that was real life, technically. And the reason I say that is because we're in a mental matrix right now. I mean, if you live in America, I mean, I'm sorry, but it doesn't matter which side you choose, red or blue, you can tell something is wrong.
Yeah.
In America, whether it comes to the financial problem, whether it comes to the last 2 years of lockdowns, which defy all of healthcare, whether you agree with medical or not, it defies healthcare, or school system or anything else. We're living in a matrix. And the hardest part with this is, who actually understands me and my show the best? Kids, teenagers. Literally, I have, when I get messages behind the scenes, and I live stream to thousands every single day. And what I get back is the parents tell me behind the scenes, wow, you woke me up to stuff I didn't know, but my kids totally agree with you from the very beginning. And I go, and therein lies the problem, because we teach our kids to fall in line as parents, not because we're bad parents, but because the matrix has already gotten the parents. And so the kids, well, you got to go to school, you got to go to college, you got to get a good job. Wait, why can't I be like Dad, who has the Dad Edge podcast and hangs out in his office and goes out to potentially millions of people? Why can't I be Dr. Dean, who, sure, he has a practice and he goes to practice every day, but he also has associates to help run the practice for him. And I get to speak into this microphone about stuff that I am passionate about. And some of us make more money doing this than, I'm not going to go into numbers because I don't know what you do with your audience, but there's times where I've made more money doing this in a month or in a couple weeks than my parents ever made in a year or two combined.
Yeah.
But then our kids, you got to go to school, you got to get that degree, you got to. Why? I mean, I'm not saying like, hey, I have a doctorate degree. I mean, if my daughter decides she wants to become, medical or chiropractic or not, if she wants to, she can go for it. I'm not going to stop her. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to program her into saying, my programming is, you better go out and shoot a video when you do your little gardening thing, or when you're doing your hula hoop. Why, Dad? Because you might be able to help somebody. When you go out and when we get the chickens in the backyard and you go out and clean the chickens, why don't you take a little GoPro with you? We don't necessarily have to use it, but take it with you. And she was like, why, Dad? Because you don't know how many people you could help by taking that and uploading it to a social media site, and more kids see what you're doing. And that's how you change the planet. You're not changing the planet by saying you went and got a degree, right? Sure, you got to do that's great. You're changing the planet by documenting your life and then showing other people that you're documenting your life. And I like, for example, that kid's a genius right there. See, that's what you want to be. You're a genius walking around your house with no shirt on. That's a genius. Why? Because he's just living life, right? Like, and I love stuff like that. Like my daughter will come in, hey dad, what are you doing? You're on camera. People are saying hi to her. And I'm like, just say hi. This is how you impact the world. Impacting the world is by communicating every day with the world and showing them what life can be like.
It's interesting that we're having this conversation around school, because I actually was relieved having a conversation with my son about high school. He's going to be, my oldest is going to be a sophomore. And we have discussions in my house around school, bringing value to others, the traditional thing of go get your college degree, go find a safe job, yada, yada, yada. My conversations with the kids are much like yours, to where what I say to, they're like, hey, should I go to college? I'm like, I don't know. Should you?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do? And, I always tell the boys, I'm like, listen, your college degree does not define success for you. Okay. I will say this though, college is a great experience, and college forces you to grow up a little bit. College also forces you to think, differently about the world and how to operate as an adult. And some of the best relationships you'll make are in college. It's just a really good, if you look at life in a fishbowl, right? College can be an amazing experience for you, right? But it's not, if you get your degree in business, that doesn't mean that you are going to go on and make $1 gazillion, right? And be successful. It's all about, I got my degree in health management, exercise science with a minor in nutrition. That's my degree. And I really wanted to go into corporate wellness. And when I found out how much people in corporate wellness made, that's when I got into pharmaceutical sales. Cause I was like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to pay off all my college loans, making $28,000 a year. And so I went into, sales. But here's the good news I got with my son's high school in a conversation. I was like, God bless Ethan. I was like, it pisses me off that the school system does not teach you about life. Every single person should be taking classes on emotional intelligence, relationship skills, communication skills, personal finance skills. And my son spoke up. He goes, I signed up for a personal finance class for my sophomore year. I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
That's awesome.
I know. He goes, yeah, I signed up for personal finance because we talk about money all the time.
Yeah.
I bring my boys to my quarterly financial advisor meetings because for the past year and a half, they've had custodial accounts that they actually invest into the market. And we all have the same financial advisor. So like this financial literacy, I'm big on it. And they have their own accounts. They actually invest in the market. They ask a lot of great questions when we're doing these quarterly reviews, and they're learning these things. And I was like, dude, that is amazing news. I was like,
that's
because
awesome.
Part of the mess that adults have is we have no clue how to manage our money.
100%.
And as you look at the divorce rate, everybody knows the divorce rate's 50+%. What a lot of people don't know is 50% of those divorces are due to financial distress, money mismanagement, all these things that has to do with our finances. And I'm like, dude, I was like, that's like the best news I've heard, is that your high school is now teaching you personal finance. I'm going to be really fascinated to see. I was like, I want to see every day what they're teaching you.
Yeah. I was just saying, can I join the class just to check it out?
I know. Well, here's the thing too, is I want to be really cautious with that, because the story that I'm telling myself is the school is new to teaching this, because I haven't heard about the class. I'm happy they're doing it, but I also want to make sure, like, hey,
make sure it's good data.
It is. I've told them, I was like, I want you to come home every day and teach me what they taught you that day. And it doesn't have to be in depth. I was just give me 5 minutes of a summary of what they're teaching you. And I want to see the book and all that, because we'll dissect it even further. And, but I love the fact that they're finally teaching this. I saw a meme. And the last thing I'll say is this, not too long ago, and it made me laugh. It's like, wow. He's like, I know polyellograms, but I don't know how to do my own taxes. Like, this is really messed up. I don't remember, like, polyelogram season comes out in April, and we all have to be prepared for it and do our numbers. Like, and I was like,
dude,
wow.
I preach on that all the time. Not that you can't go learn those advanced maths, and I think it's really good, but like, and it's understanding a kid's ability to soak in information as fast as they can. I mean, this literally happened a month ago. Because we're talking about money, and we talk about money all the time in the house, and with mom doing, and mom just went and did a, she did a sale thing on her online brand. I did something, and like how much came in and this and that. And my daughter, we sat down, and one night at the dinner table, just kind of hanging out, and my wife was doing a live stream, and I'm like literally showing her money. So I go and get all the coins out, and I'm showing her like a quarter and a dime, and I'm showing her who's on it and why that person is on it. Like, why is that face on it? And then I'm literally going into, because she was trying to do math on currency, and she was running into a little bit of an issue, just like stuck on some stuff. And I'm like, okay, hold on, let's go get the actual money out. And so I'm having her go through naming a quarter, who is it, like who's on, all this different stuff. And then I even went down and taught her like, hey, the quarter today is not silver, it's an alloy. But pre-1964, it was all silver. Why, Dad? Oh, because this is how the Fed works. This is the silver. This is the actual metals, et cetera. And then I got her to a certain point, and then like she started getting stuck a little again. And in my head, I was trying to teach her, but I wasn't connecting with her 100%. Like we were getting a little like in the mud. And then mom happens to come through right at that time. And I'm like, sweetie, your turn to take over. She's like, why? I go, I'm a little stuck here. She's not getting exactly what I'm trying to like come across with on this part. You sit down and do. Mom, literally perfect timing. Mom sits down. Mom was able to explain that part in a certain way to get her through that barrier. And then she literally understood stuff, and she learned exactly what we were trying to teach her. She went right to the math, and she started nailing the math of money. And that took grand total 30 minutes. 30 minutes. And now she knows her coins, she knows currencies, and she knows the math better. And
That's awesome.
that stuff would have taken a week in school to get through.
Right.
And so all of that is part of this, in general, education system problem. And that's just one piece of it, obviously. But like that's one of the beauties too of just having your kids at home. And I know not everyone can do that, but I would urge men and women to find a purpose for themselves that they could do at home, even if it's a side hustle, as I say, to learn this stuff, have that kind of time. It's amazing the growth you'll experience in your life.
As I agree. And, as we wrap up this last segment of the show, I think we've talked about a lot of things, and we've brought awareness, right? Like, hey, like a lot of what's going on as far as like mental health, physical health has to do with, the highly processed foods and the crap that we eat. It truly is. And I know that, and you know that. Yep. The other thing too is when you go in for, doctor's appointments, they're going to be pretty quick to want to prescribe you a med in some way, shape, or form. We've also talked about some of the things that we deal with as parents and our kids are going through in the school system, what they're learning, what they're not learning. But, my question for you is from broad spectrum, like, man, what are parents to do? Where do we even start? Right. It's very overwhelming. And what I can tell you is that most of us just want to keep doing the thing that we've always done, feed our kid cocoa bombs, just whatever they're learning in school, they learn in school. I don't really, it's not my job to know that or whatever else, or like, what's a parent to do?
That is always the $1 million question. So
Yeah.
I'll bring it from a standpoint of on my show. So I have my show. I have a couple of moderators. I have like a producer that works with me directly, and she's pretty hardcore like I am. And the issue though is we have social media out there, and so sometimes we drop some bombs. Sometimes we're kind with what we drop. Sometimes it's a little crazy to wake people up, and a lot of times. So my producer / assistant is not an attorney. She's not a paralegal, but she has the mind of a paralegal. She has the mind of an investigator, and she's better than most attorneys that I know. And so sometimes if I don't have time, I'll throw something over to her and I'm like, hey, go ahead and dig on this kind of thing. And she'll come back like 30 minutes later with deeper stuff than I could have even found. And I'm a pretty good researcher. Or if it's healthcare, I'm diving in and I'm looking at stuff. and we'll drop things. And one of my issues with my audience that I work with is I always tell them, I will give you some, but I'm not giving you all of it, because if I give you all of it, you'll never learn it, because you have to learn to research. But back to your question, the most common thing I get back, it doesn't matter if it's health related, parent related, political, geopolitical, money, doesn't matter. Where do I start? And it's funny because I have a speaking gig, professional speaking gig in Georgia in about a month and a half, and a friend of mine is bringing me in, and he's like, "Hey, everyone's gonna want to know how you got to where you got, and like how you have the audience and the viewership and everything." And I go, "Dude, you know how I got it?" And we were kind of joking behind the scenes because like he knows the answer to that question, but he's like trying to get me to work with it so the audience has it. And I go, "You just start." And it's funny because the same thing with my audience, even just the quote unquote average Joe who's watching. How do I learn? Just start. And they're like, "What do you mean just start?" And I go, "It's just like my business. How did I get a podcast to this? How do you get a podcast to that?" One day you just started. And if you went back to your very first podcast, I guarantee you'd look at it and go, "Oh my God, that was horrible." I still have my first couple podcasts and I always did them on video. I still have him sitting on my laptop and a hard drive. And every once in a while I go back, not due to ego. I just go back and I look at it and I go, "Oh my goodness," because the same way hey, how did I learn how the world was working? You know how I learned? I watched a political debate one time with Ron Paul against the typical Republicans. And I am a Ron Paul libertarian mindset, right? And I watched Ron Paul, and Ron Paul said something that at the time I didn't agree with. And I was like, "What do you mean it's blowback? What do you mean we go over somewhere else and we start a war and then it's blowback and something happens over here?" I'm like, "What do you?" And I got mad at him. I was like, so mad. But then I was like, wait, if I'm mad about something, maybe I don't know enough about it. And so I started researching. And the next thing you know, the guy who I thought I was completely mad at became like a hero to me. Because then I took that, I started researching, started reading. I went, whoa, that actually makes sense. And then that sent me down another, not rabbit hole, but kind of a rabbit hole. And I'm like, oh, that made sense. Next thing you know, a year later, 6 months later, 3 months later, my whole worldview totally evolved. And now I'm here today. And people ask me all the time, like, how'd you get there? I'm like, well, I started watching this guy, I started watching this guy, I started reading this. And then I started this podcast over here. And then, I started looking at these medications. And so every facet of my life, doesn't matter if it's health, money, political, doesn't matter. I just started. And most people are afraid to start in the wrong spot. I can tell you this goes back to just my faith in general, in life, creator, etc. You're not going to start in the wrong spot, because no matter where you pick, you're going to pick the right spot. Even if it's not the right spot, you will be intuitively and spiritually guided by whatever runs this whole thing. God, creator, source, doesn't matter. Universe. I don't care how people look at it. I look at it as my creator, my source is always going to guide me in the right spot. But I have to start. I must start, because you will never get anywhere without works. And that work is just start. I don't care if it's one little thing today and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't look at it anymore. That blew my mind and I'm a little scared." It's okay. Back away. Go back in tomorrow. And you're always going to be led to the right spot. So if you can start one spot, you will be fine.
I agree with that. Men are notorious of analysis paralysis.
Yes.
And I need the perfect plan in order to take the first step, which is absolutely not. When it comes to, think about what we feed our kids, right? It's probably a terrible diet, most likely. But if you could even make one slight tweak, like, hey, instead of cocoa bombs for breakfast, we're going to have some scrambled eggs, right?
Totally.
That come from, a free range chicken, right? Or something like that. Or we're going to, we're going to eat something. We're going to have a smoothie,
Yep.
with high octane fuel and vegetables and all kinds of good stuff in it, versus the crap that goes into this bowl, right? This morning.
Right.
And sometimes just getting started, right? You don't have to overhaul the entire diet in one fell swoop in one day. In fact, I wouldn't recommend that personally, because your kids are like, what the heck, man? Like,
Yeah.
but these baby steps, right? To at least get them on the path. Hey, like, okay, we got breakfast nailed. Let's make some tweaks to your lunch, right? No more school lunches. We're going to pack your lunch, and this is what it's going to look like, I think just doing something to improve the overall health of your kids. And by the way, don't neglect yourself, right? Guys are notorious for being like, well, hey, I'm a dad, I'm a husband. My health is now on the back burner, and I just don't take care of myself.
That's one of my
So,
pet peeves, by the way, is
I agree.
men going, well, I'm just going to work really hard to take care of everybody. You're worthless at 40 years old with a heart attack. You're
Yep.
worthless at 60 years old with a heart attack. Your family is there. They need you there as long as they can be there. Your martyrdom system of driving yourself into the ground, and we all have to work on that. I work on that still. That is not a prize to win. That is not a good thing. Like your family needs you. I'm like, I turn into biohacker just because I'm like, my family needs me. I'm going to do everything in my power, not to become a transhumanist robot, but to make my body last as long as I can. So my daughter has me, my wife has me.
I like that approach. And you're right. A lot of these guys, and I used to be one of them too, take so much pride in having that miserable busy badge. You know what I mean? Like I put this challenge. We have a couple different groups in Dad Edge. One is our Dad Edge Mastermind. That's Dad Edge Alliance. That's the logo you see behind me. And
Yep.
then we have our larger group with thousands of men in it, called the Dad Edge Real Dads with Purpose. And that is just more or less, it's not a mastermind. There's no Zoom calls. It's just a Facebook group for guys to post their questions and that kind of thing. I posted this thing that I saw off social media, just basically saying, if you can't give yourself 30 minutes a day to optimize your health, you're missing the mark. And basically what it did is it broke down your hours per week. It's 168 hours a week. Even if you sleep 8 hours a night, right? Then you take away like this much. And then let's also factor in, you work 40 to 50 hours a week. Okay, let's take that out. Okay. Then you have like your meals and your dinners. And basically what it did is it gave you like 25 hours of opportunity for you to go take care of yourself. Right. And it was legit, right? It was very legit and doable. And so I posted that in that group, and this is like a year and a half ago. And dude, like the comments that these guys would make was just fascinating to me. Like, well, who works 8 hours or who sleeps 8 hours a night? Right. I sleep 5. And then like, oh, who has a 40-hour a week job? I work 80 hours a week. Right. And it was like, these guys were basically stating, I work so hard and I'm driving myself into the ground and I'm miserable, but it's so noble. And they were so proud of it. And you're like, wow, like, well, how is that working out for you, man? And granted, I used to be that guy too.
Yeah.
Like, and it was miserable. And now I know better. But last question I have for you is, why do we take so much pride in like destroying ourselves?
I believe it's programming. I really do. I think it's programming from an early age. I think it's kind of set in there. I think that's the. I also see something, and I don't have the answer to this, and I'm going to throw this out there to everyone to ponder on, including yourself, because I can say 100% certain I don't have the answer to this, but I address it often. I actually talked to my wife about it the other day again, and I said, I love the world of money from a standpoint of being successful and using it to help people, right? Not from a greedy standpoint, right? But we know that the word capitalism has made America very good, but at the same time, we also know there's a lot of problems because greedy corporations, greedy politicians, lots of stuff, right? But at the same time, I completely disagree with what direction the country is going in from a socialist, communist, Marxist standpoint. There has to be another way where we make sure as a nation we have a population that is not being taken care of, but we're building up our population. We're building up our men. We're building up our moms as women, as mothers, as business people they want to. We're building up our children. There can still be profits and we can still do great things with money. But at the same time, I don't want to see the homeless person on the side of the street. I don't want to see the veteran committing suicide because we quote unquote don't have money, because there's no such thing as scarcity, right? Yeah, I can market scarcity all day long. It's fun. It's to get people to sign up and take action, but there is no such thing as scarcity in this world. Everything is abundant, from the food to the money, to the water, to the air. It just is, right? And so I want to see men jump in, because this is what I know. This answer will be given spiritually and mentally as more people take responsibility and jump into the conversation. And we're going to manifest, not to go woo-woo on everybody, we're going to manifest that solution, because people like myself, yourself, you're coaching men, I'm talking to people on my show. As we bring that up, those questions are going to be answered. And I think that's ultimately how we actually start fixing the problem.
Well, dude, I have loved this. I'm really glad you're leading the charge on this. We need more people out there with this type of voice and these stances. I want to make sure that the men can find you and everything that you're doing. If they want to follow you on social, anything that they can maybe take advantage of, but however, the best way to find you, where can men find you?
It's really, really simple. So I've built an outline. I looked at social media. I got banned most every place for talking outwardly about the last 2 years of the pandemic. So I got banned everywhere there, which was actually good. It made me even better, and it made the audience come in faster. So I built a site where I can't be taken down because it's my own site. So you go to bravetv.com. It is part news. It is part healthcare. It is part podcast. Everything is there. The live stream is there. I'm going to literally go live stream. I'm on my show in 45 minutes. The past show is always right below it. So everything is up there. Anything health related there is all there. Literally bravetv.com. The social media stuff there is on the side. So I just push everybody there. I have different healthcare products, supplementation. When it comes to supplementation, I'm a physician, so I don't play with commercial products. A lot of people are into the whole, well, there's too many supplements. Okay, I only work with companies that actually will only work with physicians. So I don't do anything quote unquote commercial out there. We use stuff that actually gets things done in the body. We talk about diet, we talk about nutrition. That's what we do in the show. But everything's at bravetv.com just to be a hub for people to come, and even if they don't agree with everything, it's a source of information that you can know at least is on the right track. That makes sense.
That's so cool, man. Well, listen, guys, you won't have to hunt very far to find Dr. Jason. Just head on over to thedadedge.com/380 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/380. The story I'm telling myself, Dr. Jason, is that we've only breached the surface of this topic. And I think you and I could go on like probably 10 episodes of diving deep on certain topics and really, really unveil what's down the rabbit hole with a lot of these things. But for the guys who want to find you, we're going to put everything in the show notes for you guys who are listening. So Dr. Jason, this was awesome, man. I really appreciate obviously your message and the cool work you're doing in the world, man.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on, but I appreciate what you're doing, because honestly, at the end of the day, there's a lot of stuff I can talk about, and I go over a lot of different subjects, but we do need people like you, men like you, who are literally like the Dad Edge Alliance. The fact that you're focusing on men to build them up, like, big acknowledgement to you for doing that and making it a better world.
Oh man, I appreciate it. You know, I always say that, especially our guys in the Alliance, this is legacy work.
Yes.
A lot of guys think that, their journey of self-development, learning how to be a better man, husband, father, human being, right? That it starts and stops there. And I always tell guys, I'm like, no, it's way bigger than you, because the work that you do is going to impact your wife. It's going to impact the kids. The work that you do will impact your children to have a better current state with their own father, better experience, less trauma, which is going to make them more functional human beings, which they are going to have better relationships and better marriages because of it. And because of that, they have a fighting chance of being a better parent, which means you're going to see this stuff in your grandkids. So don't ever,
100%.
yeah, don't ever think for a second that this is a start and stop with just personal development. It's me. Nope. This will impact, men for generations to come. And the same with your work too. So it's pretty cool what you're doing, man.
I love it. I thank you for having me on. I appreciate it very much.
You bet. All right, gentlemen, like I said, head on over to thedadedge.com/380 for all of the resources that we mentioned today, and also to follow Dr. Jason Dean and his journey and what he's doing in the world. Dr. Jason, thank you so much for coming on today, man.
Thanks so much.
You bet. Gentlemen, as always, go out and live legendary. Take care.